Welcome to today's history of the Upper Ohio Valley. It is brought to you as a public service by ESPTella Productions. We will address issues and concerns of residents in the area. The opinions expressed are solely those of the host and the guest. I'm your host, Bob Connors. This week we are featuring Tim Porter.
Got a 1931 Ford rat rod, kind of custom, and this is one of the things that they're doing a lot of today. This is kind of like back in the 50s and 60s. They built what they call rat rods. These rat rods have come back very heavy right now in our car show world. So it's kind of interesting that they're bringing this stuff back.
And Judge Eric Costine. Tim will be discussing car culture and different car shows in the area. Judge Costine will be talking about drugs and how they are affecting you and your family. But I want to get started right away. We just want to have a little discussion with you and our guest, Tim, the cool car guy, who has some great information for you about cars and car shows in the area. But I want to ask you, Jim, when you first started getting into this, you want to do something with cars. What got your attention to say, I want to do this and work on these cars?
My son, when he was 6 years old, all he liked was cars. He didn't play with any other kind of toys but cars. So basically, as he got older, he says, when he's 10 years old, he says, Dad, we need to get a car so that we can do shows and go do this stuff ourselves. So anyway, that's a little bit tricky, where you come up with this extra money to go buy a car and get started in the hobby. But we did, we bought a car and then had that car for 3 years, and then started collecting, buying another car. And each car we bought, we was like, do we really need another car? Anyhow, then we had to get storage.
That was it.
Start keeping all the cars.
Let me ask you, whenever you refurbish a car, you start with something that needs a lot of work. You get it finished and you step back, you take a look at the car. What is it you get out of that? How does that feel? What happens there?
It's an appreciation. I'm a builder and carpenter, obviously, still, and it's an appreciation to the things that you can do, with your hands more than anything, and how far you can take something. You get sometimes you get a car that's completely rusted in parts. They call it a bucket car. It's literally in pieces in parts. So you can imagine what it takes to put something like that together and literally make it better than new.
Yeah, that's it.
So
that's just that satisfaction of using your hands and getting it done.
Right.
Let me ask you another question. You probably in all these years had a favorite that you refurbished that sticks in your mind. Can you tell me about that?
We have our love is Buicks. We not too many people have Buicks, but we love our Buicks. We started out with the Buick and we buy Buicks, sell Buicks, but we have 3 still. So those are actually we call them our babies that we'll probably, 3 of them we'll never part with, that we have and had for, one car I've had for 18 years.
Wow.
So we'll probably never part with our Buicks.
So that was it, huh?
That was it, yeah, that's kind of the way it was, yeah.
If you had nothing in your way of taking the car of your dream, didn't cost, no matter how much it cost, you could do whatever you wanted to restore, what would you pick?
Well, we, like I said, our love is with Buick, so we would probably pick some kind of a 50s, 60s Buick.
Back to the Buick.
Yeah, well, yes, because what we're into is what they call retro modding. So we're basically taking all the old cars at this point. Now we have original cars, but we're taking our old cars and putting new technology in them. We've got 3 cars we've just built, literally running on computers and fuel injected.
Wow!
But they're old cars.
Cool.
So we would obviously do that. Like I said earlier, we love Buicks, so we would probably pick a 57 to a 60 Buick of some sort and do a complete retro mod on that car to make it we call it everyday drivers. When you do retro modding, you put new motors and new drivetrains and fuel injection and all that in it. That way, it's a good road car. You can take it out and drive it.
Wow.
And drive it to California and back.
I have friends who are a doctor, a judge, an attorney, steel worker, people of different walks of life who are involved with cars and
Right.
restoration. Can you describe a little bit about the people who come to these shows and who they are?
It's really a mixture, and you're right. It's doctors, lawyers, people like myself that just like the hobby. We're trying very hard to get the younger people more involved. Like there again, I'll bring my son into it again. He's highly involved in this and has been since he was 10 years old. So we're trying to get the young guys involved to bring them into it. Obviously, they're doing more of the, well, like I say, retro modding than they would be having the old original cars.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the biggest issue is trying to keep everybody into it. But fortunately, as people get older, you know, because it was always the older generation, obviously, through the years that kept it all going. Well, the older generation's starting to pass away on us, you know, quickly. So we're trying to keep it going with what we got to work with. So my age group is kind of the group that's into it pretty heavy at this point. But it's all walks of life. Everybody.
That's kind of what I thought.
Yeah.
I I'm not a car buff, but if I wanted to retain the value of my car, what's the most important thing that I need to do to take care of it?
What we do in our, like, we judge car shows obviously too. So we always say you need to keep the car clean, detailed, and looking as much as like new as you can. That's very important
Clean
for
and detailed.
resale or for someone wanting to buy your car, whether it's an old car or even, you know, an everyday car. It's all about keeping it nice.
Keeping it clean and nice.
Keeping it nice.
So you don't let it get muddy and sit there
Don't-
for
yeah.
all through the winter and then clean
Never
it up
wash
in the
it.
summer. You don't do that.
No, that's exactly right.
My bad.
But I don't think you're by yourself.
Another question I have is sometimes I go to the get an oil change. Mechanic comes out with a long list of things that he said, oh, you got to have all this done. It's several hundred or $1,000. How do you prioritize if you have to spread that out? You can't do it all at once.
It's all running. You want to make sure your car's running right too. You know, I mean, in other words, if they come back and say, hey, you need new brakes, you need, you know, obviously oil changes, you know, which are pretty, you know, procedure. You need new brakes. You need your tires wore out. You know, it's drivability. You got to make sure your car is drivable, so it's not going to break down on you on a trip or even, you know, local. So maintenance is the biggest thing on old or new cars. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I think those are all pretty good things, and just wanted to ask if there's anything else that I didn't go over that you'd like to discuss here.
Yeah, the only thing I'd like to touch on real quickly is what my son Christopher and I are involved with the High Valley Street Survivors Car Club, and we do various events, you know, through the summer months, including like the Ogilvy Good Zoo Car Show. That's our club that does that, and we do various cruises and shows around the area. And Belmont County, you know, since we're in Belmont County, we'll use Belmont County, and I could come up with the cruises that will be going on this summer. And the second Tuesday of every month, starting in May, we'll be at the Cracker Barrel with a car cruise from 5 to 8, and that will be sponsored by the Street Survivors Car Club.
Oh, yeah.
So that's one of the shows that if anybody's interested in coming and seeing some of the classic cars, come there to see them. The other one is on the third Thursday of every month, or the third Tuesday of every month. You guys up or down?
I think we're still rolling. Are we rolling? We're
Okay.
rolling. Go
On
ahead.
the third Tuesday of every month, we're at Cracker Barrel. That's what I said already. Cracker Barrel on the third Tuesday. On the second Thursday of the month, there's a cruise at the Eaton Park restaurant at the Plaza. And that's sponsored by Classic Car Cruisers, or Classy Chassis Car Club from St. Clairsville. Yeah, trying to keep all these car clubs together. It's got a little bit difficult. And their car cruises from 5 to 8 also. And they'll start in May and run through the summer on the second Thursdays. And then the big show that's going to happen this summer will be put on by Judge Frank Forgiato, and he's going to do a show at the High Valley Mall in the front parking lot of the mall. and it's going to be for drug-free Belmont County.
Oh, that's
Basically,
good.
is what he's going to do this show, and he's working on that show now. And then our club will be involved with that show, helping him out with
The
that show.
drug-free
also.
Belmont County. When will that happen?
That is September the 16th.
No.
September the 16th in the High Valley Mall parking lot in front of the mall.
And that's it?
So, yeah, that's kind of what's going to be going on this summer, at least in Belmont County.
Video and media technology have changed dramatically over the years. At ESPTella Productions, we have the knowledge and the latest equipment to complete your project that will be a cut above the rest. The next time you need media produced, call the award-winning professionals in St. Clairsville, Enchanted Sound and Video, ESPTella Productions, 740-695-5289.
Drug use in the country has reached epidemic proportions. It affects each and every one of us on a daily basis. Every day there are news stories of appalling behavior and tragedy. In this next segment, Judge Costine will try to help us understand what is going on and what can be done about it.
I don't have it.
He's going to run your spot.
Drug use in the country has reached epidemic proportions. It affects each and every one of us on a daily basis. Every day there are news stories of appalling behavior and tragedy. In this next segment, Judge Costine will try to help us understand what is going on and what can be done about it.
It's good to have you. I know we have an important conversation to have here. And I'd like to start with maybe you giving us like a general overview of what you're seeing in this area with drugs right now.
You know, I've been involved in the legal system here in Belmont County for probably about 30 years. I haven't been a judge for that entire period of time. I was elected started in 2013, so this is kind of a new thing for me. Obviously, I'm seeing it from a different perspective, but I certainly saw things before that because I was doing a lot of criminal defense work. And I would say going back, 12 years, 15 years, we saw, a change. There's always been drug crimes in Belmont County, but we kind of saw a change or a drift in the character of those crimes. I remember that I saw an increase in the oxycodone drug abuse cases that were coming through the court systems back at that time. And it seemed like that kind of, just played through. There would be periods of time that we would see a lot of it in the court systems, and then there would be a wane in that. But unfortunately, we've seen probably in the last 5 or 6 years that this has kind of drifted to a different type of opioid addiction with a lot of heroin use. And I think the real reason is that the cost for purchasing the illicit oxycodones, which is a prescription drug, but for that to be on the street became very expensive for the individuals that were using it, the citizens of Belmont County, unfortunately. And it's drifted now towards heroin because heroin is cheap, it's effective, and unfortunately it's deadly. So we've seen that drift.
Now the other question is, in relationship to crime that occurs around getting these drugs, comparing 10 years ago versus now, what do the crimes look like?
And I would say that back when we were seeing the oxycodone, we were seeing an awful lot of theft cases, home invasion type cases that were going on. Personally, I think that probably has subsided because the cost is now not as great for the individuals to be able to supply their habit. So those types of invasions. So again, I don't know that that isn't going to come back, but those kind of crimes were really rampant for a period of time. And
So they were worse back then than they are now?
I think that there probably is. The other judges may tell you something entirely different on that, but I think that at least for Belmont County right now, we've probably seen a waning in those types of home invasion type cases, and hopefully it stays that way. It's definitely something that the citizens don't need to have going on around them, or the fear of somebody breaking into your house.
Yeah. So what about the people who are committing crimes? Are they older? Are they working people? Are they poor people? Who is it that's doing the crimes?
And what we're seeing, at least for the drug abuse and those kinds of thefts, to try to get the money to continue the drug abuse. I mean, we know what's going on. We can see what the genesis is for that. Just because they're not in on a drug crime, they're there on a theft crime, we still know what the genesis of that is. And it's the younger individuals. It's the 20 to 30 year olds. The people that are getting out of high school, not finding jobs, being idle. That's one of the problems that we have in this Appalachia area. It's one of the things that hits us hard right here. And I think that those individuals are getting the drugs, and it's being siphoned to them as well. Now, that doesn't mean that it doesn't branch out. We certainly see, and it surprises me to see 40 or 50-year-olds involved in heroin cases in the courts, 60-year-olds being involved in heroin cases. But that's definitely not the norm. It's the younger generation that has really gotten gripped in this whole terrible thing.
Let me ask you a question about when you have somebody before you and they're confronted by you, and they're going to either go to jail or they're going to rehab. What is their reaction to that?
Yeah, and again, I'm not a felony judge, so they see me for a period of time. And again, some of the cases stay with me because there's so many felony cases that are going up. They actually stay in the misdemeanor court, and I'm having to deal with them. But it's a very good question. The interesting thing is, if you were to say to an individual only, you need to go to rehab, that's one reaction. But if it's an alternative, jail or rehab, what would you do? Obviously, they're going to pick the rehab, and there are drug courts here locally, a very effective drug court. I don't have the statistics on those effectiveness, but we've acknowledged in society now, in the state of Ohio, in Belmont County, that we don't need to be locking people up for addiction situations. Give them that opportunity to rehabilitate themselves, to get into treatment, to work through their issues, and if they can successfully do that, we've accomplished something.
Yeah.
Now, not everybody's going to respond to that, and it may be 50, 70% that won't respond to that. Then those people need those harsh sanctions of prison or jail incarceration or other types of detention.
And are there people who come and ask you to put them in jail?
Again, yes. I mean, I've heard of situations. I don't know of any specifically with me, but that's how bad this has actually gotten. When you see a person coming into a courtroom and looking at a judge and begging that judge to put them in jail because they cannot control their own addiction, you know that that's grabbed society. Wow. And it's grabbed Belmont County. It used to never be here. We didn't think that it would ever be here, but it is.
What about recidivism when you compare people who go to jail versus people who rehab and go back to the problem?
I'm sure somebody's made statistics about that. From what I see, yes, I don't know what the percentage would be, but I would say that there's a large amount of people that do go back to using even after they've been through a treatment program, because frankly, you have to want to treat to be able to stay away from it. And if we're forcing somebody in a criminal system to get into a drug court, you're putting them in a system where they probably didn't want to be there. They probably wanted to continue to use, but they couldn't because the system had them hooked at that point. I remember going to a seminar in Columbus, and I was told at that time, and I don't know if there's any fact to this, but I had somebody tell me, 50% of the opioid users or heroin users may very well be able to treat and get away from that drug for the rest of their lives. The terrible thing that was said, the other 50% will die.
That is shocking.
It is
absolutely shocking.
Absolutely.
When you look at the epidemic, there's a lot of conversations about more crime control versus more healthcare assistance. Is there any indication which of those is more effective? Being tougher on crime or providing more health services?
It has to be both, obviously. We have to attack that from both situations. This addiction situation, there's a criminal component to it. The criminal courts need to take control of that and need to deal with it harshly in the best way that they can, but there's also that health care component to it. There needs to be treatment available, and the systems are clogged right now. There are so many people that need the treatment that it's very difficult finding beds for them so that they can be in inpatient treatment. And really, inpatient treatment is the answer. You can't expect somebody to be in outpatient treatment and be able to effectively get them through what they need. They can phase into an outpatient treatment, but it really needs to be a period of time of complete abstinence, and you need to watch them and detain them and get through that system.
Keep them away from it.
Absolutely.
Now, this question probably really can't be answered, so I don't want to put you on the spot. But I'm going to ask the question. Do you see any end to this epidemic in Belmont County, Ohio, around the country, anytime in the near future?
You know, Bob, I've thought about that question. You're not putting me on the spot necessarily. I think that it's a generational thing. A generation is going to have to move through this. One of the best things we can do is hit education hard in the grade schools, you know, in the kindergartens. That's where we need to start. That next generation that is not using right now, and we know that they're not using because they're too young to know that. They need to be educated so that they see what is going on. Some of them already see it in their households, in their families. They see it in mom and dad. That's where the education. And the generation that perhaps is gripped with this right now, you know, they're eventually, in the next 20 years, going to phase through that. And that's going to be a generation that's not going to be as gripped by this. They're going to lose a lot of the people of that generation. But hopefully, as the generations go through, and that's a sad thing to think that it's going to be an evolutionary type of thing to get away from it, rather than us being able to address the issue and attack it and get rid of it, because there's so many components from the people that are manufacturing the drug, distributing it, getting it into the area. All of those are very complex questions that law enforcement is trying its darndest to try to attack that. But, you know, there's only so many man hours. There's only so many ways that you can go and find this information out. And they're taxed with not having enough time to really do it.
Yeah, you know, it is a scourge on our society, and I think that everybody's working at it, and not much is known how to accomplish this.
Yeah.
But as we wind up here, Judge, do you have anything else you'd like to comment on? Any other statements or thoughts about this?
You know, the one thing I would like to plug, there's going to be a suicide awareness walk that's going to be done in Belmont County. It'll be the first one, kind of a kickoff thing that we're doing. The name of the organization is doing this is Jerry's Walk. And you can go to a webpage, www.jerryswalk.org, and see and register for this. It's April 30th at the Memorial Park here in St. Clairsville is where the walk's going to be happening. And, you know, it's formed around Jerry Williams, who committed suicide a number of years ago, and his family has gotten together and has decided that they want to do something locally. I had suicide in my own family, so it kind of hits personally to me as well. And because of that, we're working towards getting this together to get some funds. And these funds that are from this organization, a nonprofit organization, are all going to stay local. They're all going to go specifically to St. Clairsville to educate students and youth on the tragic problem that we have with suicide, which a lot of that is directly tied to the drug use as well.
Yeah. So you want to give that website one more time, just to make sure they got it.
www.jerryswalk.org.
Judge, thank you very much.
Very good.
Pleasure
Thank you,
meeting
Bob.
you. Good conversation.
Good.
And we will be back another time. Sorry for the glitch that we had. We had little problems with Facebook, and there were a few cutouts that we had, but we'll try to make it. We'll see you next time.